So for the bone colours, I've decided to go for this game colour called Off-White. So yeah, obviously very close to white, quite a pale colour, but just a little bit more warmth than pure white. Basically going to have to do one side, let it dry, and then do the other side, I think. Maybe I should have pinned it, but hindsight and all that. There's quite a bit of detail to the teeth, so I may end up dry brushing it with a slightly darker sort of brown or something. Depends on what I end up with the cord. I mean, I'm assuming the cord I'll end up going with some kind of reddy colour because there's not a lot of red to the model, so I introduce that through the cords. I mean, I could go like a hemp yellow sort of colour for the cords as well, but then it's going to match very similar to the bone colour, so I want it to look a bit different. Yeah, I think for the bone that's should work. I did consider going a greener tinge. I've got like middle stone and stone sort of paints, but it's not really stone. This is meant to be more a natural sort of bone parts, so that's why I've gone for the yellow. I mean, I didn't want to go pure white or, you know, I mean, this is called off-white, so it's pretty close to white, but there are a lot of skulls, both on the base and on his belt. So I didn't want to go pure white because the skulls will be. Now, where am I going to take the tooth to? Probably to there, I'd say. So yeah, so the skulls will be white. I mean, they won't end up looking white, of course. I'll paint them white and then it'll get a wash or a dry brush to kind of make it all look a bit more dirty and weathered, which is what I tend to do for most things, but especially for like barbarians and trolls and that type of model. I mean, something science fictiony you may not do that to it, if it's meant to be more of a clean look. Some of my gaming stuff, I don't do that. I want them to have a cleaner sort of look, but for things like in this setting, like a troll, you know, it's definitely going to end up with a dirty, unkept sort of finish to it. Alright, so that's one half. I'll let that dry and I'll do the other side. So today I'm going to be working on some of the wrappings using a game colour from Vallejo called Pale Yellow. Kind of looks like a bit of a hemp style colour. It's the sort of look that I'm going for. I did think about using like a brown or a red, but there's a lot of brown already in the wood and the clothing sort of wrappings that he's got around his legs and his arms. So yeah, I just wanted to have some sort of different kind of colour. Nothing too dark So I thought this would be still a good contrast with the bone soft yellow colour, but yeah, also enough of a difference. And still different, obviously, from the brown. So. Using a finer detail brush today, just smaller areas. I'll probably have to do it in two parts though. Do one side, let it dry, the other side, let it dry. I haven't done the skulls yet, but I have given the model a black base, so that may change later on. Always room for possibility. I do have a thought, an idea on how I want to go about doing the base, but I will probably watch a YouTube or two myself on whether I can pull off lava, which is kind of like what I'm thinking to do, is have the black background but have like some lightning style runs of red go through it, like a fiery sort of lavary sort of area. That is the current thinking, but all plans subject to change. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this colour. Hemp was kind of like the idea that I had in my mind of like a Hessian sort of bag, that hemp sort of style colour for the wrapping, so not necessarily leather, more like a cloth based. So now that we're out of the colour blocking stage, pretty much, still have the skulls, like I say, and there is some chain work as well, so, and some bones. So okay, I know I'm not out of the colour blocking stage yet, still got a lot to do, but anyway, in this particular area, it's more into the detail painting area. So when you get into the detail painting, it's kind of a good idea to just slow it all down a bit, use a more detailed brush, take your time, because if you go over an area you're not meant to paint, then the more you do that, the more of a pain kind of touch-ups are. I find it a lot easier if you can to just paint it right the first time instead of having to do lots of touch-ups. And you do the odd mistake and you kick yourself and you're really annoyed when you have to go back and redo what you'd previously done. Or at least I am. That's just the way I am. So rather get it done right the first time and take a little bit of time to do so. When I'm painting, especially when I'm detail painting, I do tend to like to want to anchor my hand next to something, and it's not that I like shake terribly or anything like that. It's just, I don't know, a habit that I've always had. And who knows, later on if I do start shaking, it would obviously make things easier, but it's just, I don't know, like stabilize your hand, I guess, is kind of the thought I've always had around it, rather than just kind of like trying to do everything with a hand floating free. Once again, I don't have any issues, at least not yet. Can't speak to the future, but it's just habit. It's the way I do it. So that's the end of the bone. That's probably going to need another colour, another coat I should say. And that's the timber. So that's the join of the timber to the bone. Okay. Most paints require 2 coats anyway, but obviously when you're painting a lighter paint on an area which has had darker paint on it, it sometimes requires even more than the 2 coats, because obviously the dark colour will come through. So curves, okay. Trying to figure out what is actually, so it's kind of like disappears under the bone. Whatever, I didn't design the model, I'm just painting it. And it is a good design. I mean, this collection, the Might Against the Maledict collection, is a set of amazing designs. I've recently purchased another MyMiniFactory Kickstarter campaign and kind of have a bit of buyer's remorse over it. I mean, it was not cheap. A lot of these ones with, like, 100 models or whatever, they are reasonable cost, and fair enough, the designers deserve to get paid for what they design, but I certainly don't think, when I went through and looked at the number of models that I do want to print and paint, it's like half the number of Might of Against the Maledict, or Might of the Maledict, whatever it is. Yeah, just really, really good designs, lots of models that I still want to print out from their collection and paint up. With my sort of collection, it's something where I've got a lot of space, like bookshelf space and dedicated space that I've made for these 3D prints. So it's not like I'm in any hurry. It's not like I need to, pump them out or anything. But it is something I'm happy to just take my time and gradually fill up the display cabinet over time. Have a nice collection to show people when they turn up. And, you do hobbies for yourself, really, not for other people. It is, yes, it's fun to have cool models to show off. I show photos as well to colleagues and friends. I guess that's kind of what started the whole idea of doing this YouTube channel in the first place, was just the positive response that I receive from friends and colleagues, and them sort of saying, oh yeah, looks really cool. And I was thinking, well, okay, well, if some people think that's cool, then others might be interested to see what I do as well. And that kind of led me down this whole rabbit hole of setting up a YouTube channel. never had any kind of delusions about it going viral or anything like that. I mean, I think what I do is reasonably niche, but I do love the models. I do love what I do, my hobby, so if people get some enjoyment out of it as well, or some interest, and maybe want to think about getting a 3D printer themselves, well, you know, I'm happy to be a part of that journey. And here was me talking about how I like to anchor my hand, and what am I doing? I'm freehanding. It's just the space. It's not a lot of room to put my hand down on something. But yes, there's a usual general rule, and I guess I am putting it on the desk, but I do like to kind of anchor it to the model somewhere usually. So that should be fine to go down, yeah. Hold the hand. Yes, there's a good case in point where I'm painting this on the blue, and you can see as opposed to painting it on areas where the dark brown has been, that certainly takes it in a lot easier. I guess that's also why I've never been such a fan of priming with the black colour. I always, usually, at least, I won't say always, there is one model I've got that I got to paint that I did prime in black, but that, to be honest, that was more like a test case to see how I felt about painting a model that had been primed in black. Anyway, I digress. One of the main reasons why I have resisted the trend of priming in black is because of painting with lighter colours. You then have a lot more touch-ups and additional coats, and it's just not as easy. I mean, I use white plastic, so I like having the grey colour so I can see that I've primed where I have and where I haven't, as opposed to like priming in white, which then it all just kind of looks white and it makes it difficult to see, oh well, have I primed there or not? Is that plastic? But I just have always preferred grey with the priming as my main choice of colour, and yeah, that way it's kind of like a common middle ground between painting with light colours, painting with dark colours. It doesn't seem to affect your consistency as much, so it's no big deal. Whereas if you prime with black, which is, I know, very popular and a lot of people do it, but then if you then want to paint in a light colour, you need a lot more coats and more touch-ups to get rid of any resemblance, any traces of the black. So that's been my theory for a long time. I do have this model which is of a goblin, I think, riding a chariot pulled by two boars. So it's a very cool model, and I do look forward to getting around to painting that, but I've got a few that I want to finish before I start any of my, I think I've got 3 printed models that I haven't even started painting yet, and that is one of them. But It's one of those things, even though it is a passion and a hobby, there's only so many hours in the day when you work. Well, I don't work full-time these days, but I do work and have other responsibilities and commitments. And other hobbies too, I might add, like crypto. I do watch and I do trade crypto. Yeah, it's coming along. And then there's always PlayStation gaming. So I'm not a PC gamer. Do not get me started on PCs and Windows. Everything of mine is Apple. And woodworking from time to time. Have even incorporated several woodworking projects, including my photo booth, into this hobby. Can be a bit handy having that sort of equipment all set up sometimes. Okay, leave a little bit showing there. More. So the plan with attaching this is I'm waiting until I've completed the chains and the skulls. So once I'm reasonably happy with how they look on the body of the model, then I will attach the arm. For really small stuff, I quite often will pin it, but this thing's so big I just didn't think it was necessary to pin it. Just paint one side, hold it, flip it over when it's dry and paint the other side. There. You can see some filament lines in the print. I fully acknowledge that. And, you know, obviously if you were dealing with a higher resolution like a resin printer, you may be able to remove those, but I also have outlined before, I think, why I personally don't like resin printing, at least as it stands at the moment. For its positives, there are a lot of negatives that I'm just not prepared to deal with. Things like very dangerous chemicals, etc., etc. But sure, you do get a higher resolution. I don't doubt that. And you might be able to remove all the layer lines, but I think layer lines become a bigger issue the smaller the model is. To be honest, I could filler and sand that and buff that away and spend a lot of time and effort to remove a lot of it. But on a model this scale, I don't really think it matters. I really don't. Like, the color conveys the item and the intent of the item far more than the actual physicality of it itself. So that's why I'm quite happy to just plod along with my filament prints, and if there's any like you know, misprints or holes, like I think I showed before in a previous video how I use filler to fill in the thumb there, because there was a misprint. That happens sometimes, and no problems with touch-ups of that sort of nature, but I don't really bother just removing filament lines for the sake of removing them. Maybe it's a bit stubborn, I don't know. But I just kind of feel like any imperfections or any details like that, like, sure, there's a designer that designs these models, but every time you print it, there's going to be slight variations, right? So, and then you paint it to make it look unique. That's kind of the skill, if there is a skill involved in this, in the hobby. So, yeah. Anyway, long story to a long explanation short, I don't tend to worry too much about if I see some filament lines. For me, it's no big deal. Let's try that again. So can you see any of that through? I don't think any of that, but that one, that's strange, you can. I think I was talking before in a previous video about how I'd like at some point to do some more kind of like science fiction models, like mix it up a bit, do some things different. And that is very true, but I bought this new collection which is also fantasy, and I was going through the models that I have which I would really like to print, and they're pretty much all fantasy. I mean, I don't really need to pigeonhole myself as a fantasy painter. I do paint models, although those are like from the 32mm scale up to the tanks and stuff, but they're, you know, way smaller than this sort of stuff. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I was really itching to print something like the Troll. It was like I produced all these smaller, you know, soldiers and tanks recently, and I just felt like doing something that was a little bit bigger again, something something a bit more substance. Alrighty, look, that is one side of the wrappings, I guess you would call it, although you could also call that wrappings, but this is like the wet weapon wrapping. Definitely will need some touch-ups and second coats, definitely, especially where the darker colours are at, but I will put that down for now. I'll do similar on this small axe. There's also some wrappings there, but I think I will wrap the video up now. So, as always, thank you very much for watching.